the brain lives inside the body. And if the body is healthy, the brain is healthy, right? Now they've discovered lactic acid actually cleans the brain. Actually cleans the brain. There's a purpose for lactic acid, that pain we feel after exercising. All you got to do, by the way, this is fairly simple. You mandate that everybody's got to have a date on the calendar. You make some slight changes to the schools. You get rid of the shit food in the schools. Like, here's the deal. If you want free education, this is the food you get. I don't know what to tell you, but we're doing broccoli, chicken, and rice. You don't like it, you're not eating. Awesome.
Dude, how did you go from, you were in finance, right? I believe finance to running the thing I think of when I think of people who are very interested in strength and grit, who maybe don't always have that. Like the people I know who have done Spartan races definitely were not like jocks in high school. They were guys who kind of similar to me, had it tough, and then kind of tried to get their act together and are now going and doing something with the intent of like putting themselves through a meat grinder. Where did that come from?
You know, as you were asking the question, there's two roads I want to go down with the answer. One is, and I'll come back to the second one, which is, let's talk about the kinds of people that do it. But first, where did it come from? I just happened to be right before doing this call with you, I was on a text chain with somebody where we're doing a bathroom renovation in a house that I'm renting. And the guy was like, oh, so you do endurance, you do that, and you also know about tile. And so as you asked the question, where my mind went was, my dad was a maniac in a good way. Entrepreneur, had a ton of real estate in the early 80s. I grew up fixing bathrooms, renovating apartments. He bought a disco. He owned a greenhouse. He had a trucking company. He was like a madman, owned a pizza place, wildly successful for a moment there in the 80s. And as a kid, I got exposed to all that, you know, sheetrock, design, cement, all kinds of building materials, roofing. And there's something about construction, right? There's something about solving those problems that makes you a little grittier, a little tougher. The guys don't show up when they're supposed to. The material doesn't show up when it's supposed to. The concrete hardens before it's supposed. Like, a lot of shit happens and it costs you big money. And I grew up around that, in addition to him having this trucking business where tractor trailers always excite little kids, right? Like, so seeing trucks and warehouses and freight and forklifts. So that was kind of instilled in me. And then surrounding all that, by the way, was all organized crime, because that's where I lived. So then that adds a layer of toughness to the whole, 5 layers of toughness to the whole thing, right? And people are going to jail and they're getting 25-year bit, like, and you can't rat, right? And so there's that going on. And then another layer on top of it. This is going to sound really crazy, and it certainly sounded crazier in the 80s and 90s and 2000s than it does today. Was my mom, amongst, you know, within all that, my mom finds a yogi, an 80-year-old yogi in a health food store in Queens, New York, because my grandmother is sick and dying of cancer, and she wants to find a different way. And she doesn't believe for a moment that cigarettes and cannolis and you know, chicken parm, you know, maybe that's causing something. Maybe that's not the way. And this yogi, in one sit down, I carefully choose the word sit down, right? In one sit down, says, hey, you know, you might want to become vegan. You might want to try yoga. You might want to start meditating. You might want to start running. And my mom throws it all away, all that stuff that we grew up with away, and she takes on this new life. She had to be really tough to do that, because her little world was going to blow up. Her kids didn't want any part of that. Her husband didn't want any part of that. No one, everybody around her thought she was a nutcase. There were no yoga journals or Whole Foods back then. Like, this was not normal.
Right.
Right. And so you're going to go up against the world with this new idea, this new lifestyle. It sounded crazy, stupid. So I was surrounded, I guess my point is, by two very tough people in a very tough neighborhood. And then another level, then my dad loses everything. And so you're a kid and your dad has all these businesses and he's revered, and now he's losing everything, and banks are taking back properties, and that's got to give you a little layer of toughness, because like, that's embarrassing and it's a mess and financially difficult. And then parents get divorced and mom moves to Ithaca, New York, and she can't pay the mortgage. And so when I think about where Spartan came from, it's that. It's all of that. It's watching my mother meditate for 30 days straight while fasting.
Right.
Right. Like, and understanding, maybe, by the way, maybe I know I'm not that smart, but maybe through that whole thing that I just described, maybe my mom, my dad, maybe they were saying things to me, probably were. Like, my dad certainly believed hard work was the way. My mom certainly believed that less was more, that cold showers were better, that like, and even though I was rejecting all this nonsense, maybe like it was.
No, it sounds to me like, and this, people could take this the wrong way because it's, it's subjective, right? To a degree, what I'm going to say is, but it sounds to me like you were surrounded with and experienced struggle that didn't ruin you. Struggle that you saw your mom struggle, you saw your dad struggle, you struggled. Struggle is something I think we try so desperately to escape from. And then you come, like, my big revelation was like, oh, I need to struggle. Like, I need to stop the voice that wants me to be comfortable all the time right now, because it's actually creating worse struggle in the long term. And I need to struggle right now and get through it. And everything you just said, all that stuff you listed off, to me sounds like struggle.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's eloquently said, because not only were we struggling, not only was I now struggling, but I watched struggle everywhere. And then the folks that got in trouble and did bad things and went to jail, they were going to struggle. Like, it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. It was everywhere. And everybody was fighting for a place that was where there was no struggle, but everybody was struggling to
Right.
get to a place where there was no struggle.
Yeah.
Right. And then the guy finally gets to where there's no struggle and he goes to jail. Right.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately that's the goal, right? The goal is how to create a system that's the most efficient, that creates the least drag in whatever area of your life. And we wake up one day and it's like, well, you can get your daily calories checking out at the gas station. That's pretty efficient. And you can do all your business from your phone. You don't have to leave your house. That's pretty efficient. And we can be constantly entertained. Like, life has become so efficient. And then it's like, well, what are the downsides? The second order effects here are really, really severe.
No, there's so much free time in our lives. I don't know what day it was this weekend. I had some time about 2 weeks ago, and then I got to go back and answer that second. About 2 weeks ago, I went to go see my son on campus at the new college he's going to. And I met a kid who's doing 50 marathons in 50 days.
Jesus.
And he's like, Mr. De Sena, would you come do one with me? And I train every day. I've been training every day for 40 years, but I'm not marathon ready on a moment's notice. I mean, we could all get through a marathon if we had to get to safety or whatever. But I had about 13 days to get ready. So this Saturday I had time. To your point, life has become so efficient. You have a lot of time actually during the day. A lot of time, even though I'm addicted to work and I get on and I send my Slacks and my emails and I think about the business, I still have a lot of hours on a weekend, right?
Yeah.
Especially a holiday weekend. So I went out and I knocked out 20 miles, and I didn't do 20 miles at once. I did 5 and then another 5 and another 5. I felt great. And so to your point, I guess I could have just consumed a ton of media, could have stopped at a gas station for a ton of food, right? Like it would have been really efficient. But what would I have done all day? Nothing.
Right.
But instead, I was on my feet for 20 miles and felt great. My skin looked better at the end of the day. Like, so, I tell people all the time, if this was 100 years ago, you and I would be having a podcast right now saying, hey, we need more gas station food. We need more comfort. We need more Netflix, right? Like, but actually we need more of those 20-mile days.
Yeah. That's
and
right.
By the way, I bring it up because 20 miles sounds daunting, but I guess my point is, even at a slow pace, like you can almost do 20 miles a day.
Yeah. Listen, I have flat feet. I have tendonitis in one patella. I have no meniscus in the other knee. I was 550 pounds. I put a lot of stress on my legs. I am been doing rehab and therapy on my legs for a long time. Like I have bad legs. My legs are not great, and I can walk 20 miles. I've done it. I can't run 20 miles, but I can do a 20-mile day. Sure.
And I guess my point is we have so much time because of what you said earlier about removing all the friction from, like, we don't have to go out and crank our car to start and change the carburetor that day. Like there's so much free time in a day, and maybe it's not 20 miles, but you have a lot of time to get a lot of stuff, stuff done. Let's go, if it's okay with you, let's go to that second question, which is, who are the people that do this? I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, and please push back on me. Tell me if I'm just believing my own nonsense.
Sure.
It's great that we play soccer. My girls play soccer. It's great that we wrestle. My boys wrestle or play baseball or football or swim or whatever, right? There's very few sports, though, that once we hit, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, like we're not going to go in the rink and go play hockey.
No, I think I would actually say there's none. We were talking about pickleball, tennis, golf. What else?
There's really, right. And so the sport we have, this endurance, I call it what we do extreme wellness, right? This list of things we do, whether it's mountain biking or hiking or doing obstacles, it's for the people. Like everybody can go out there and do it. You can go run, like we talked about. You can go swim, play golf. You can do a few things, but this is rugged too.
Yeah, it's
rugged, and it creates suffering, which is good.
Yeah.
And there's a podium and medals and like a time to chase. So it doesn't feel like you're just out playing golf. Like it's like a legit sport. So, when I talk to countries about, one of the things I'm really excited about, by the way, you could join me on this if you want, is I'm going to be in Abu Dhabi right after Thanksgiving. And what I'm talking to them about, which I talk to other countries about, is how do we get a society, a city, a country healthy at scale fast? Like if we didn't have this thing, which is great, democracy, where everything gets stuck in a system and you can't get anything done. If we had a leader that you could trust and just snap his fingers or her fingers and we could, how would we get everybody healthy fast? And this is one of those things, in my opinion. You got to have sports that 35 and 40 and 50-year-olds can play.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They're going to sit in the stands, drink beer, and eat hot dogs and watch other people play?
Right. I mean, that was the pastime. That was the sport. You see more people getting involved in stuff like this now. I cannot remember as a kid, I don't think my dad was really into sports, but so there was never an instance of him and his friends playing touch football or even soccer. I know some adults are still into playing soccer, but I can't think of anything like what you're doing where, there are marathon people and there are bike riding people. I was involved in the cycling community for a long time, and there were people our age who get on a bike every Sunday and go for a 50-mile ride. And you can find suffering in that, but there's something less gritty, about what you're doing. You're creating mud traps, and hills, I almost think like if you don't draw a little bit of blood, did you really do it?
As you're bringing me back to old, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I took special vitamins this morning or something, but you're bringing me back to a place. So we have a farm in Vermont, and when we were rebuilding that farm, I put a separate door in to go below the mudroom and have its own shower, because my training every day purposely got me really cold, really tired, really dirty. I always came in muddy and messy. But let me tell you, I felt good.
Yeah.
Like there's something really special. Like when it's too sterile on a road bike, and it's just not the same, right? When it's too sterile in a swim, it's just not the same. There was something about just having pebbles in your shoes and being like, I don't know, there's something about it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. You know, I spent a lot of time on a road bike, and if I got home and didn't have, you know, white stains from salt on my kit, and take my glasses off and have, you know, the raccoon eyes from grit from hitting dirt patches and stuff, it was a real casual day. You know, if I didn't
Yeah.
have a little bit of asphalt rubbed into some part of my body that I had to scrub out with a brush, you know, it was an easy day. And I had lots of those easy days, and they were great too. But I know what you're talking about, and those really tough, dirty, physical days were more rewarding.
They're more attractive too.
Yeah.
Right? There's just something really attractive about hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it got me super into cyclocross. Do you know cyclocross?
yeah, so that would be our equivalent of cycling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
gotta get you
and get across a stream or an obstacle. That is awesome.
I don't know how much you're riding these days, but if you are, or either way, we have a race. It's the original mountain bike race, the world's first mountain bike race, called La Ruta. It's down in Costa Rica. I'd love to invite you down and check that out and just see. It goes from coast to coast. Lance Armstrong said it's the toughest bike race he's ever done, including Tour de France. And like, it's rugged.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds so awesome. Yeah. So you've created this platform for people to experience that. Do you think that I mean, okay, well, I want to go back to what you were talking about. How do you get a society healthy in a snap? If there was somebody who could do that, it can't just be sports. There's got to be some nutrition side of that too, because a lot of, I think, these problems in health begin with nutrition.
Yeah. So please come to Abu Dhabi, November 29th. Be one of the speakers if you have ideas on how to do it. I have my ideas. A Kelly Starrett or a Gabby Reese or Laird Hamilton, they'll have their ideas. If I was standing up in front of the audience right now and I had the ability to make change, it would be really simple. Human beings, you and I, even the most motivated human beings, we are more attracted to the gas station food. Like even though we want to eat clean and we do eat like there's a reason those companies are doing so well. People are seeking a slice of pizza or a cheesecake, right? Like it's hard to avoid that stuff. It's hard to wake up early in the morning and do the workout. It's hard to push yourself to that point of suffering. And so what I say is we have to have a date on the calendar. We have to force, and anybody in our country would hate me saying this because we need freedom. Of course we love freedom, of course. But freedom comes at a price too. Like we are wired to eat the cheesecake and not do the work. And so if you're too free, you end up with a society that's incredibly fat, incredibly sick. It's costing it's just not sustainable. And so you put a date on the calendar, and maybe if you're a Saudi prince or a ruler of Abu Dhabi, you could do it with an iron fist and say, everybody, every quarter must run a marathon or must do a Spartan, whatever it may be. And then everything else starts to fall in place once you do. This is my belief, because I've been doing this so long. Once you got a date on the calendar, like a student that has a test coming up, or a contractor that has a due date for his payment. Once there's a date on the calendar, a boxer that's about to go into the ring and have a big fight, start going to bed early, start waking up early, put down a glass of wine, put down the cookie, start training, start eating, like all those things that you're not naturally inclined to do, you start doing because you're fucked. You got this date coming.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago on this marathon thing, I told the kid I'll do the marathon, his 36th marathon in Philly. 13 days later, so that forced me this Saturday to knock out 20. Forced me to run 10 with my son yesterday morning. And I'm a motivated guy. I do this for a living. Right. So,
man, that would be a wild experiment. Yeah. Do you think somebody over there is going to do that? Is that what they want? What is this conference?
I think I created the conference. I'm doing this, and here's what I think. I think the hard way is the hard way. So as much as, and I love my partners in Abu Dhabi, and I love my partners in Saudi, and all my partners around the world, but people talk a big game. Here's a great example. So they have me in a VVIP golf cart, and we're driving to the mosque or whatever. And I'm excited to see it. And we've got to stop, and we get out, and we got to get in this line. And I'm looking for what the line is. And it's a line of fancier golf carts that we're waiting for. And it's only like 200 or 300 yards where we're going. And there's a line of like 50 people. And I'm saying, you guys want to change society here. You want to get people healthy. You want to lower rates of diabetes. We're waiting in line for a golf cart. We could walk 300. What are we doing? Why are we doing? And there's a line. It's not like one, you know what I mean? So I think we talk a big game. Go to the airport. There's a flight of stairs. There's 2 escalators. No one's in the stairs. Everybody's on the escalator. Those people probably have gym memberships. Why aren't they taking the stairs?
Yeah.
You go to fitness conventions. I see the same thing. So how would I do it? You got to mandate it. You got to mandate it, because the human brain, I did a lot of podcasts. I did not know this. The human brain, as I was alluding to, is designed to avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
Because a million years on this planet, we're pretty uncomfortable. We're being attacked by animals. We're running out of food. We got locust storms. Right? The brain was like, hey, avoid this trap, avoid that trap. Don't eat that thing. It doesn't have enough calories. So the brain is like a million-year-old brain that's not designed for this world where you've got DoorDash.
Yeah, I think the human body, I think it is a very advanced, incredibly dumb machine. And when we factor in the countless famines that our species has experienced, and every time something terrible wipes out a bunch of people before they can reproduce, there's a little genetic shift, and maybe it's so subtle you would never notice it, but then you arrive at today, and it's like, when we didn't have all of this, if we came across a honeybee nest in nature or a plant full of berries, we needed to eat all that. We needed to fill our glycogen stores in our muscles, and suddenly we could overeat everything. We're just eating some random twigs and a couple nuts and the leftover thing some John killed 2 weeks ago. Some bits of that. Yeah, that's how we're going to survive. But then when we come into contact with these super rare things, we got to eat all of it. We can suddenly pack away all this stuff. I think about like Ötzi the Iceman, who they found, and he's only a couple thousand years old. They found him in between Switzerland and Italy up in the mountains. He had 4 pounds of goat in his stomach when he died. 4 pounds. That's an insane amount of goat. There's no way that's his daily intake. You know what I mean? He had just sat down, had a feast, and then they went to kill the guy. But I look around, I think of these ideas of like, let's get rid of processed food and let's get rid of this and that and this and that. But I still think, like, for me, I was raised by a mom who wasn't quite like macrobiotic and hippie in the way your mom was, but my mom was a hippie, and we only ate from health food stores, and it wasn't Whole Foods back then. It was like dingy little places that
Yeah, yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
afford the lights. Everything was dusty because no one
Yeah,
was in there. You go
yeah,
in and you see Sikhs and people dying of cancer.
yeah.
That was the clientele. And then there was us with my mom. My mom was just trying to handle my obesity. So not having processed food, I'll still overeat organic food. I'll still overeat it because that discomfort, everything we're talking about, I could wipe that out by overeating.
Mm.
If I overate that food, I felt comfortable. And so I was just constantly trying to fill this vacancy within myself. And this thing you talk about hard, it really is a kind of a radical shift in perspective of valuing hard right now to experience life in a more easy way that's almost unrecognizable, because everything in me wants to just lay in bed, turn on the TV, and order Postmates. That's all I want to do every day.
That's that old brain. That
Yeah.
old brain is doing that. And, as you were just describing, doing hard now to get easy later, I think about, you know, those 12, 15-hour training days, or that 200-mile bike ride, or whatever I would do. And I definitely enjoyed coming back into the living room in Vermont and laying on the hardwood floor after that huge, like, exhausted, and just squeezed every ounce of everything out of me. And I don't know if that laying down was the special moment I'm remembering, or actually the special moment was the 20 hours on the bike.
Yeah.
It was
Sure.
so yeah, I mean, certainly a massive dopamine hits, right? Getting back home and showered up and feeling like you did something, but the sun rising, the sun setting, the moon out, the birds, like, yeah, it was all. So I guess my point is, the suffering to go to a place where there's no suffering. uh, I think I just enjoy the suffering. I think we don't know it. We run from it, but actually the suffering is the special place.
I think so too. It took me getting on a bike to really understand that kind of affinity for suffering. And
Yeah.
there's a canyon called Latigo Canyon out in the Santa Monica Mountains. And it's like 10 or 11 miles of 6% grade. It just is just nonstop for 10 miles. And you get on it. And the first time I was going up it, after 20 minutes, I was like, I got to turn around. And I turned around and I felt bad. I didn't feel good. There was no good feeling. And then the next time I tried to go up it, I got to that same place and thought I got to turn around. And then I didn't. I think there's something that you, you, it's really weird for me to try to imagine how I was versus how I am now, but it's a learned thing. I think of it as a perspective shift or a change of viewpoint, which I want to be able to do. Like, if presented with new information, I want to be able to change my point of view or opinion on something. That's my ideal or my goal. But I don't know that that's totally possible, because had somebody just told me, you will enjoy this, I don't know that I could just start enjoying it.
What a great sentence for a t-shirt, by the way. Strive to change your opinion with new information, like, because we are so set in our ways, especially on social media. So that's a good one. But I don't know if you know this regarding you not turning around after turning around once on that hill. I didn't know this, but a doctor, Mark McLaughlin, neurosurgeon, told me when they open up the brain and they look at the brain under microscope, they can see tracks set by people who take on hard things and complete them. And then they see gaps from people that turned around. And so it's a biological change, just like your bicep changes doing curls in the gym. there's a biological change in the brain that occurs when you push through that hard time and get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So that's the perspective shift is this psychological thing you're talking about. There's actually a biological shift.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is how literally, that is how I convince my wife to do cold plunges with me. And we try to do them most mornings. But she says, like, I don't want to. What is the point in this? And I say, the point is that you don't want to. That's
Yes,
it.
that's right.
That's
That's
the
it.
entire point.
That's the point.
I don't
Yep.
want to either. And I
Mm.
know that if we don't right now do the thing we don't want to do, we're
Yeah.
worse off for it. So we have
Yeah.
to do it. You know?
I love it. I love that. I got to have your wife talk to my wife. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. She started off after, I think, day 5. She's like, so we're burning body fat doing this, right? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And she was like, well, why on earth are we doing it? And I said,
Well, don't have her tell my wife that part.
right. Yeah. She was like, is it anti-aging? Are we boosting,
You're going to look a
growth
lot
hormones
younger.
up
You're
there?
going to lose a ton of weight.
Yeah.
You could eat anything you want after this. Doesn't affect you.
Right.
You can work out less.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever it takes. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, the only thing that really gets me in there now is that I don't want to do it.
That's another great ad for Spartan is like, why do it? Because a lot of people ask, like, why do these tough things? And so maybe you just give them a bunch of bullshit answers, 6 or 7 answers that are all not true, like your life, all these things. And then it's none of that. It's
No.
just, it's just, you got to do the hard thing.
You have to do the hard thing. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it becomes, when I think about diet, exercise, everything that was sold to me for so long before any of this change within me happened, and I kind of got on a path that I've been successful at maintaining for years now. I just wanted the easy one. Just sell me the diet that is the least inconvenient. That give me one change. Oh, I don't have to eat bread. If I stop eating bread, my life will be different. Done. I'll never eat bread again. And I don't get anywhere because it's not true.
Not true. Another one we should do together. You should look at my schedule and come out to one of the Tough Mudder events, because what I want to do to people is sell the easy one.
Yeah.
And the hard one, right? So there's like a 15K and a 5K.
Right.
And then you would be out there at the 5K mark, and you'd say, sorry, this product's no longer available.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. We only have the hard one.
We ran out of the easy one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Got none left.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll take you right over here to the hard path. Yeah. That's amazing.
Listen, everybody gets it done. Everybody would go the extra 10K and they'd be happier for it.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just more time. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to convince, I think a species to take the more difficult route, when for so long, all we've been doing as a species is trying to lay a more efficient, easier path. It's really hard. It's a hard sell, man. But then look, your company's very successful. People need it. I think that you could recognize that.
Well, I look, we are operating across 40 plus countries. We are a big company that everybody notices us. We do a lot of revenue, but I would say relative to the 8 billion people on the planet, it's not like we haven't even scratched the surface on everybody needs this. And we're selling 0.00001% of the population on hard.
Right.
If I was selling, if I was selling handbags filled with candy canes and like vaping sticks, I'd be like, forget about it. I'd sell 1 billion of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that perspective is interesting too. If we have 300 plus million people in the United States, I mean, even if you got 10%, you'd be one of the biggest companies
I would
on
take,
Earth.
if I had 30 million people a year in the United States doing the races, sure. But best case, I'll have 1 million people in the United States doing a race.
Right.
And so you know, that's the problem. The problem is the majority of the population doesn't understand. They say exactly what your wife said to you, or my wife said to me about like doing the cold plunge, or like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
My best friend is a billionaire. One of my best friends is a billionaire. Super smart guy. Supported Spartan all the way financially. He's been, psychologically supported me. He says, no pain, no pain. Why would you want to do anything hard? I don't understand.
yeah.
Like he still said, you know what I mean? Like, why? I don't understand. Why would I want to be uncomfortable?
Well, I mean, I understand that point of view, but no pain, diabetes, no pain, heart disease, no pain, and there's signs. I'm blanking on the study, so I could get it wrong, but I think exercise can offset things like dementia and Alzheimer's. You know what I mean? So like, no pain, lots of problems, lots of problems. You look at JFK had a really interesting fitness thing that he was pushing into public schools. I mean, you look at they had advertisements for this back then, and it was like pull-ups and squats and dips and push-ups and all kind of calisthenic stuff, like body weight stuff. It wasn't like he was building gyms in schools with advanced machines. It was like a pair of bars and the ground, and that's what you had to work with. And the kids looked very fit. If you look at images from the beach in the 1960s, you can't recognize the populace versus today. It's a very different looking thing. And people are angry when that's brought up now as being re-implemented in schools.
Now it's, I was talking to somebody recently, pretty high up in one of the schools, and they're against it because it's not inclusive. If you mandate that every kid has to do a mile every day, whatever it be. Like if I was running a school, you go back to the question of, Joe, what would you do? Okay, all schools were doing whatever, 30 burpees buy-in just to get through the front door, right? We're definitely doing PE. I don't want to hear it. We will find a sport for every single kid. But the academics, the folks running the schools, maybe if you think about it, think about how many schools there are, think about how many people are running those schools. They might not have been involved in sports. They might have been embarrassed. They might have, whatever they went through as a kid, they might not have bought in at all. And so they're saying, like, why would we want that? And the reality is, the reason you'd want that is because the brain lives inside the body. And if the body is healthy, the brain is healthy.
Yeah.
Right? Now they've discovered lactic acid actually cleans the brain.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It actually cleans the brain. There's a purpose for lactic acid, that pain we feel after exercising.
Right.
So, look, you and I are preaching to what we know. We know what has to be done. And there'll be a breaking point, hopefully, as terrible as that sounds. There'll be a breaking point where we wake up. All you got to do, by the way, this is fairly simple. You mandate that everybody's got to have a date on the calendar. You make some slight changes to the schools. You get rid of the shit food in the schools. Like, here's the deal. If you want free education, this is the food you get. You don't want it, don't eat. I don't know what to tell you, but we're doing broccoli, chicken, and rice. You don't like it, you're not eating.
Right.
That's it. Right. And then what you do, in my opinion, for all these inner cities where the complaint is we don't have fresh fruits and vegetables, whatever, what we do is we overtax the hell out of vaping and sugar and Slurpees and 800-calorie coffees, triple the price and all that stuff. You want to live in a free society. You want whipped cream and sprinkles on your coffee at 800 calories. That's fine, but it's going to cost you $22 because we're going to take the excess money and we're going to subsidize broccoli and carrots and chicken and rice. And so that's dirt cheap for everybody. And then you just decide. You go out and make a lot of money and stuff yourself with diabetes.
I can recall in New York City where they were going to try to implement some restrictions on
Bloomberg.
Yeah, where it was like the drink sizes and what you could use the
They
receipt to
resisted
buy.
it. They resisted it. Freedom. But listen, my friend ran the New York City school budget. It was $1.1 billion budget. He went in and he tried to change some things. And behind the scenes, two guys that are running that division of Coca-Cola are like, this is a disaster. We got to fight this. We got to create a little rally here. Like, you know what I mean? Because they sell a lot of sodas,
Yeah,
or they sell a lot of white bread, or they sell a lot. Like, that's the problem.
yeah.
RF,
I also think like the calls for freedom, they're not absolute. You know what I mean? Like you want total freedom? That means total freedom. If we have total freedom, then I'm not paying for your healthcare anymore. I'm not
that's right.
subsidizing
No,
it.
no, I'm with you because I agree that my other response to those calls for freedom, whenever I say, get rid of soda, 5 a.m. cold showers for everybody, get rid of hot water, and they all flip out on me. The other thing I say is, hey, you don't let a 14-year-old drive. You don't
Right.
let him drink. Why isn't he screaming about freedom? Like, you do put some guardrails in place, right? We're not allowing heroin in schools, like, because we're smart enough to know that that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, 800-calorie drinks in the morning are not a good idea.
Yeah, it does get very confusing when we pay into a system that a lot of this stuff is unequally burdening. And then the idea of going like, well, okay, let's get rid of the whole system altogether and we all have freedom. You can eat whatever you want and it won't actually burden me. Fine. But no, that's not going to work because nobody can afford healthcare. And so it's like, no, we're going to subsidize healthcare to whatever degree we do and still pay way more than socialized countries and not put restrictions on anything. It's freedom just in the ways you want freedom.
We're going to have freedom, but we're going to follow this principle. Everybody's got to be a little cold, a little tired, and a little hungry.
And we would all live quite a bit longer.
You'd live longer, right? Like, it would be cold, tired, and hungry.
The idea of getting rid of hot water, my wife is very angry with you right now.
Listen, it'll suck, but that's good. I
You
get
get
it.
used to it.
You have no choice. You know, we talk about, like, when we have 4 children. So my wife, whatever a woman's going through when they're about to give birth, I get it. You want it to be a safe environment, this and that. But I said, there were a lot of births on this planet before there were hospitals. Like, before there were, like, a woman just paddled out to that island, gave birth on her own, and came back with a baby. Like,
Yeah. Well, to that point, my parents were these kind of hippies. I was born in an apartment in New York there was a midwife there, but there were no doctors. And I was born and I'm here. And then me and my wife got the nicest suite at Cedars and doctors and had multiple nurses, putting ice chips on her tongue and all the drugs and like that. That's the route we went. My kids, I'm a grandfather. My oldest daughter is 28 and she just had her second kid in an apartment in New York like a hippie. And the whole time, me and my wife are like, we'll pay for the hospital. Please go to the hospital. We're like super nervous about this. And she's like, people have been doing this for a million years. We're fine. And she was fine. Scared the shit out of me. But there was some degree.
You had an ambulance waiting down below.
Oh boy, did I ever. And a team of doctors that thought, I had people on call. But to your point and to her point, people have been doing this for a long time. Stuff like that. People survived a long time without high fructose short corn syrup. We can get by with much less, than we have. We really could.
I just thought of a scene from The Revenant as you were talking. Like, people have, look at what he survived in that movie. I don't know if you saw the movie.
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, incredible scene, right? When he's eating the raw bear.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just been battered and abused and gone through shit.
And guys like you and I are looking at that scene saying, man, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
That looks like
100%.
fun,
Yeah,
right?
he's eating the bear's liver, I think it
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was the, like I like liver. My kids hate liver, but I'd never eaten raw liver. And that was the first time, this guy, the super jack guy that talks
Liver
about
King,
eating.
Liver
Yeah.
King. Yeah.
He's never once presented anything to me that I thought looked or sounded good. It didn't seem appetizing at all. It kind of all grossed me out and he repulsed me. But watching Leonardo DiCaprio eat the bear's liver in The Revenant, I would have taken a bite.
But you know why? The reason guys like you and I look at that and it's appealing. We know how cold, tired, and hungry he is, and I think that's the thing that's like when you're that hungry,
Yeah,
anything tastes good, and that's an unbelievable place to be.
yeah,
It's like it's a very refreshing place to be. All the superficial things that are concerning you are gone. You're just trying to survive. You haven't eaten in 48 hours, right? It sounds crazy to your wife or my wife, but that's a really nice place to be.
yeah. Especially given,
Just close enough.
yeah,
Just close enough, you know?
just close enough. Yeah. It takes a lot of hard things to get there. It takes doing a lot of hard things to get there. You have to search that out. I think that's the other thing is in real life, we've done away with it. We've done away with discomfort so well that in order to get to a place like that, you got to do a Tough Mudder, you got to do a Spartan, you got to go do a century on a bike and get to a place where your cell phone doesn't work, there's no water spigot for 20 miles, and you still got to climb up out of the valley to get home. You know what I mean? Like
Stair climbers in front of every 7-Eleven. You got to knock out 20 minutes before you go in.
And by the way, you knock out 20 minutes and you go in, you're going for the banana and the boiled eggs. I don't think anybody wants a Slurpee and a 7-Eleven hot dog after that.
We should just test that one day. We should bring a bunch of Airdyne bring a bunch of those fan bikes out to a 7-Eleven, and you'd have to get the 7-Eleven to play along, shut the doors, lock the doors. You got to burn 100 calories.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
What a great experiment. To your point, though, what are you going in there to buy? I'm going in there to get some Twizzlers.
yeah,
You got to get on the bike, do 100 calories. Now, what are you going to buy? That'd be a fun experiment.
it really would. I mean, it'd be a fun experiment. The way you're talking about the Middle East, seeing one of those countries that has absolute rule, that is interested in health, run an experiment. It's not an experiment I would be against seeing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not wishing it on people, but I would be interested to know how they went about it and what the results were.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to find a donut shop or somebody willing to play along with me, and I'll bring a bunch of these fan bikes out there.
Yeah.
And let's talk after this. Shoot me an email or whatever. Everybody, all your friends, by the way, anybody listening, any one of our races is on me, complimentary. Just you collect all the names. I'll get you all free entries anywhere in the world. But come out to Abu Dhabi if you can, because I'm trying to find some place where they say, all right, Joe, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen in the United States till something breaks.
But what is breaking? How do we consider that we're not broken? What does breaking really mean?
It's got to be so bad, kind of like an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's got to be so bad that or maybe RFK, maybe the country's ready, and a guy like RFK comes in, and he's the lighthouse and the beacon, and folks line up behind his vision, which would be amazing if it happened. But I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer. I'm in this business. I'm trying to convince people. I'm trying to convince the constituents. Forget about the governments and the leaders of the schools, and like my own board of directors over the years has said to me, "You got to make it easier." The fuck are you talking about? We're not making it easier.
Yeah.
So it's like infiltrated everybody.
Yeah. This is the major problem. I don't know. The idea of the breaking point. I'm a sober person, so I've experienced rock bottom, and And when people have come to me over the years and said, will you please talk to my husband? He's an alcoholic or an addict. I need somebody to talk sense into him. I stopped doing that because the thing I recognized after trying many times and being in programs for a long time is that people don't change until they have to change. So you can't convince somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I do not think you or me telling people this is the key. I think the people that are going to get anything from this woke up today and said, I got to change. And then hear this and go, okay, those are ways that have worked for people. I'm going to try that. I think that's how it works. So
You're saying they were already doing a 180 and they happened to capture this piece of content at that moment.
Somehow,
right?
I think it happens within the individual, and otherwise they struggle against it. You know, I think you can implement changes with children simply by changing their environment. And by that, I mean, like, I have somebody ask me, how do I get my children to eat better? And I go, they're your children. You are providing them with food. That's how you get them to eat better. You provide them with better food, different sources of food. That's it. Once they're 15 years old and they're dealing with food on their own, I think it's probably too late. Now it's on them to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
like I said earlier, I just launched my 18-year-old into college this summer, and I had complete iron fist control for 18 years.
Yeah.
And then boom, he's out on his own, and maybe he's sleeping in late. Maybe he's not eating the right way. I don't know anymore. And that sucks, but you hope that you laid a foundation. Like, clearly your daughter got some of your mom's wisdom. Like, you know what I mean? Your daughter got it somehow, and she decided on her own.
Yeah.
To do that. Based on what you're saying, I do agree that change does not happen with a podcast or a book or a conference. Change happens when you're doing the stuff we're talking about, the hard stuff, in the cold plunge, back against Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu said, you want your army to win, the men's backs have to be against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I think conferences and podcasts are super useful for people who want to change, who are ready to change. And that's why
their back has to be against the wall at that, right?
The back has to be against the wall. But I think that we have become so good at moving the wall, especially in America. Oh, your back's against the wall? Stop. I'll move the wall. I'll move the wall back for you. You know what I mean? Let me come up with an app so you don't even have to get in your car and go to the drive-through. You don't have to do that anymore.
Did you see in the UK? I don't know if they still have it. They had bed warmers. So you're going to go to bed at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., whenever it is. Somebody can come to your house early, lay down, warm the bed, leave, and then you get in.
Are you fucking serious?
Dead serious.
Wow.
Right?
That's efficiency.
But that's capital. We're trying to make money in any way we can. That's the way this whole system works. And selling barbed wire and mud and salad is not as appealing as bed warmers and Twizzlers and garbage.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why your board of directors goes,
let's make it easier.
We can get 30 million people.
Yeah.
Let's just make it easier. But I like that you're not doing that. And by the way, I think you'll grow to 30 million people. It just takes a little more time, you know?
My brain, as you said that, you think you'll grow. Like, think about the Civil War or building the railroad or that was like one giant Spartan or Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
but worse.
Yeah.
And then the whole society is energized to do it.
Right.
I don't know if it happens unless it's forced to happen.
Right.
I don't think the kid's not studying unless there's, you fail, you're out. Kind of like just.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. That's you look for ways, being sober. Like, the big thing is like, okay, I don't know that I'm going to convince this person by talking to him about sobriety, but what am I doing that's allowing him to continue his behavior? And And you often find there's an awful lot that we contribute, that we just go along. Okay, that's okay. Okay, I'll help you in this way and that way. Oh, you need a little money. Okay, you've told me a good story. You know, whatever, with your kid, you didn't get your homework in. That's okay. We can make excuses. And then at the end of the day, we can force change by just going like, I'm not going to participate in this anymore. This is no longer, I will not support
No,
it.
I've had a lot of folks trying to get sober, come through, and I say anybody can come to our farm in Vermont. Anybody, the entire world is invited. I've sent the message out to 15 million emails. It's on me. You can come.
Wow.
But there's a price to pay. You're gonna work on the farm.
Yeah.
And no nonsense. You're not like my wife said, you invited 15 million people to our house. Nobody's coming. Don't worry, because they got to work.
Right.
And so, maybe over the years, maybe there's been 1,000 people, maybe since 2001. There's just not that many people that are willing to do the work.
Yeah.
They talk a big game.
By the way, that sounds like a fantastic rehab.
Oh my God. I could fix. I had a kid come out, a very wealthy family sent me a kid. You'll love this story. He's addicted to ketamines. And thankfully, I don't know a lot of this stuff because I saw The Godfather at a young age. And when he said, we don't touch drugs, and I wanted to be a tough guy, I wanted to, that was it. My brain said, we don't touch drugs.
Yeah.
So I got really lucky. And then I don't like the taste of alcohol. I just don't, it's an acquired taste. I just can't seem to acquire it. So I had this kid come out, 21 years old, hadn't talked to his dad in like 5 years, addicted to ketamines, drinking, in and out of all kinds of rehab. Nothing worked. Had him on the farm. I had an Olympian with me. It was during COVID. I had an Olympian with me that was inspiring a bunch of kids we were also working on. They didn't have that issue. We were just toughing them up during COVID. And lots of long hikes and hard workouts and clean food. And about 2 or 3 weeks in, I was going on Rogan. So I had to leave the farm, which I was nervous about because I had this one, he was my project, this ketamine kid. And, but I slept in California to meet Rogan in the morning. I got a call. It said, hey, Sam, the kid, he's escaped. I said, what do you mean he's escaped? He left the farm. He hitchhiked out on the road and we saw him get in a car and he ran away. And I got a call a few hours later and they said, he's back. I said, how'd that happen? They said, well, apparently he got in a car, he hitched a ride, and they were driving and talking and driving and talking. He said, I'm being held against my will. I'm on this farm. Oh, whose farm? Joe. And the woman who picked him up knew me. So she turned around and brought him back to the farm. So he couldn't escape. And I came back from my trip to California and we spent another 2-3 weeks together. And miraculously, I know it's not that easy, but miraculously, this kid is completely turned around, back with his dad, gave up everything. Doesn't always work out that way, and we got lucky with Sam. But we do have a lot of instances where that environmental change, that pressure we put people under, maybe triggers something that, I got a kid up there now who's been with me for a long time, and we thought we had him clean, sober, and just the other day he's drinking again.
Yeah.
Now I figured out why. There's somebody on the farm that drinks, and he pulled him right into it.
Yeah.
And so you obviously you can't live in a world where nobody around you drinks if you're trying to get right. You're going to be tempted with it.
Yeah.
But he broke.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing too, because I do think we're going to have a tougher time changing the world than we are changing ourselves. I think that's for me, the big fight has always been, how do I change myself? You're fighting a bigger fight than I am. You really are. And it's a very noble fight, I think, because you're going out there going, I want to change the fucking world. And like, my contribution is just like, find something hard to do, something you don't want to do, start doing that and build on it.
Yeah.
Because I think
live in it.
live in it, live in that
Yeah.
discomfort,
Yeah.
you know, and then the moment that you find comfort, it's so much more satisfying, you know?
That's another great t-shirt, by the way. Live uncomfortable, live in discomfort. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Joe, this has been fantastic. I'm so glad you came on. I love what you're doing and I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.